Hello, everybody. My name is Bill. Welcome back to another episode of the NCAA Football 07 Dynasty Mode series. We are continuing our path through the Big 12. We are now in the Big 12 South, which is basically Oklahoma, Texas, and Tampa Bay in place of Baylor, so we have a team in Florida as well. So, yeah, this is Big 12 South with emphasis on the South. As you can see, the six teams we're dealing with is Texas, who finished off the year at number 4, Oklahoma, who finished the year at number 3, Tampa Bay, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech. And as you can see, this is obviously the better side of the division because we have two 10-plus win teams, two teams that nearly won 10 games, a team that won 8 games, and then we have Texas Tech that finished with 4, compared to the North where we have also two 10-win teams, but also a 9-win team, a 7-win team, and then you got 4 and 8, and then 11 and 1. So let's start off with the defending Big 12 champs. I can't say defending undefeated because they lost to Colorado in week number 9, which is the reason for them having a 13-1 record. I think they were a part of that 5th ranked curse, which was a big storyline for a while in this series, if y'all remember. Excuse me there. Yeah, I enjoyed talking about that a lot. Like, that was one of my favorite talking points. Like, every time I saw the 5th ranked team playing, threw them in there because, hey, it's a storyline. 5th ranked team always seem to lose. Let's see what happens. But yeah, their week 6 win against Oklahoma is what really helped them as well. And I have that, and of course that was the Sooners' only loss, which I will talk about that a bit when I get to them. But first we're on the Longhorns, which they're a great restaurant too. It's been a couple weeks since I ate there. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track talking about food, and food is good. And this was Super Bowl Sunday. Well, this is the early Monday morning after Super Bowl Sunday. Like, it's about 1 o'clock when I'm recording this. After Super Bowl Sunday with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which we'll talk about Tampa Bay as well, but we're talking about the Lightning, which is a hockey team that I created into a football team because I could. Besides, different color scheme, they cannot sue me for copyright. you know. But I would say the greatest thing about Texas, they had the best offense in the conference. I say their improvements, they need to shore up the defense a little bit. I mean, their defense was top 25 from what I looked through. And, like, it was good enough to win you the conference this year, but who's to say, especially with it being the Big 12, if it's going to be enough to win you the conference next year? My thoughts here is Texas is a team that is about as dominant as they come. A mid-season loss to Colorado is what kept them from playing in the national championship, in my opinion. They just need to improve their defense a bit, and they will be unstoppable in conference play. Like I said, their defense is already great as is. They just need to plug in some pieces and just see how they do. You know, I mean, they're going to easily get recruits. I mean, they're a 6-star school. Well, they're one of the best schools in this game, and they can just easily nag up recruits left and right, just like Oklahoma can, who, as you can see, went 12-1. I say their best win came in the Sugar Bowl against number 5 Auburn when they won 45-6. And like I said, their only loss was in week 6 against number 4 Texas, 42-38. Oh yeah, and that only loss for Texas against Colorado was by a final score of 34-24 in week 9, but they got them back in the conference championship game. From what I saw of Oklahoma, they have a great team overall. Like, a great offense, a great defense. Their special teams look to be top notch. So all I gotta say is they just need to retool in the offseason. You know, look at what y'all need to replace that, and just go on to the next year and hopefully beat Texas, beat either Colorado, Missouri, or maybe even Nebraska or Kansas State next year in the Big 12 championship game, and boom, you're in the national championship. Granted, I'll be in there as well, and they get smoked. But hey, it's the thought that counts. And my thoughts with Oklahoma that I have written down here, or typed down since I'm using a Kindle. Oklahoma is a great team that I like to face in the national championship. Their offense is great, especially running the ball. Their defense is top 10 caliber, and they hardly turn the ball over. Now, against me, that don't mean anything, because I can turn that top 10 defense into basically me going up against an FCS school. What I will get to in 1, 2, 3, in the next 4 episodes. Both I will get to that. But for right now, we'll stick with what the schedule is. Big 12 South and the Big East and Conference USA East and West. And then get to my conference, the Independents. Like I said, they just need to plug in the holes left in the offseason and just continue like they do now. Finishing number 3 in the South is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Their record, as you can kind of see, we'll probably see a bit clearer on the actual thing than where the program thing is they went 9-4. Their best win also happened in week 6. They won against Missouri though. And their worst loss was in week 10 at Texas Tech. They beat Missouri 44-21, but they lost to Texas Tech 29-17. I looked through their stats a bit and thought that they got a top 10 passing offense and just a top 10 offense in general. But they need to be consistent, they need to have better passing defense, and they need to keep their turnovers to a minimum. Because they have like one of the closest margins of score. Only team that I see is closer is Texas A&M. Which, of course, we'll get to them in a minute. And as you can see, I'm random on a bit, going to different teams, different tangents. But that's just me personally. Like, I'll talk about one thing, then go to another, then go to another, then somehow go back to the first thing I was talking about. It's just a personal thing, No, it's not just me in videos, just me in general, And as the Lightning have been struggling a bit, being the only Florida team in the Big 12. Well, they could beat top teams like Colorado, like Texas, like Oklahoma. I mean, they beat both Texas and Oklahoma last season, I believe. But somehow they keep losing to Texas Tech. Like, Texas Tech always seems to be their kryptonite every single year. It's got like the first 2 years with Mickey, their kryptonite seemed to be Maryland. But last season, Mickey was able to get that monkey off their back. Let's see if Tampa Bay can be able to eventually get that monkey off. If they really want to become Big 12 champions before they become mediocre, because they started this thing as a 6-star program. As you can see, they've fallen down to a 4-star program, a 4-star academic, so that at least tells some of those recruits that, like, hey, we might have a chance to start like early, instead of having to wait behind the upperclassmen for us to get our time to shine. They need to really step up, force more turnovers, and be more aggressive on defense. Their head coach, Johnny Cage, needs to get a grip on this team next year, or his job could suffer a fatality. And yes, I know I named this head coach after the Mortal Kombat character. But in my defense, when I was going through naming every single head coach for this game, when I got to some of these teams, some of them I just made up names, some of them I put like the head coach I associate with the most. Like Texas, I put Mac Brown, even though he's now the head coach at North Carolina. I didn't know that before I made this dynasty, or it might have happened after I made the dynasty, but I just remember him being the head coach of Texas. Like I said, Tampa Bay, I have their head coach being Johnny Cage. Colorado's is Snoop Dogg. Nebraska's head coach is Scott Frost. I got Bill Snyder being the Kansas State head coach. Urban Meyer, I think I have being Ohio State's head coach, although now he's the Jacksonville head coach. Jim Harbaugh, I have being the Michigan head coach. Drew Brees, I have being the Purdue head coach. Lovie Smith, the Illinois head coach. Indiana's head coach, I've kind of being Rob Knight. No storyline wise, like son of Bob Knight. And yes, I know I put Drew Brees as head coach of Purdue, even though 2007 he was in his prime with the Saints. But he could retire and head off and be head coach at his alma mater. You never know. Anything can happen in the world of sports. And heck, the Texas A&M head coach, I have being Johnny Manziel. One of the greatest college football players of all time. Certainly one of the greatest I've ever seen. So the greatest I've ever seen has to be Tim Tebow. That's just me, personally. But hey, everybody has their own different opinions because everybody's grown up watching different forms of football, seeing how it's evolved over the years, how essentially it has gotten a bit softer, but overall, I still kind of enjoy it, like especially these video games, being able to go back and play these games and have fun with it. But anyways, Texas A&M, as you see, they finished 8-5. They're a 3-star school, 3-star academic, but I have to say, their best win was in week 3 against Miami, 25-24 now. Yes, Miami, beginning of the year, not the best of teams, but they turned it around, and I explained it a bit when I talked about Miami back when I did the Coastal? Yeah, the Coastal division all those weeks ago. And I have to say their worst loss came in week 8 against Colorado, 38-17. I say they overachieved a bit because, 3-star school, for comparison's sake, let's see here. Yeah, Louisville's a 3-star school. They finished 7-6. Syracuse is a 3-star school, 7-6. Pittsburgh, 3-star school, 5-7. They overachieved compared to some of the other 3-star schools. And I'd say their improvements, I looked through, and none of their stats looked all that impressive to me. Which, mediocre is something I could get by a lot of times, but Big 12, if you want to win, you need the best recruits. And what the popular football state? Texas. And Johnny Manziel has led this team to some success, both in college and real life. But his numbers aren't going to let him continue at this rate. Basically middle of the pack in his stats, maybe a couple top 30, top 20s here, but other than that, not really that good, Like I said, they probably have, the closest point margin here at, let me do the math in my head, let's see, at 36 points in total. Like I say he needs to battle with the other big schools in the state, as well as within the conference and the nation, to keep some of the recruits in Texas and have some be Aggies. Numbers don't lie, and he needs to stay away from mediocrity for a few years. Like, don't try to get those 2-star players. Try to get those 3 stars, those 4 stars that you know that are probably close to College Station, that want to play in the Big 12, but they probably might question, will I be able to play for Texas? Will I be able to play for Oklahoma? Will I be able to get away from my family and go to Colorado or Missouri, be away from them for 3, 4 years? You know, like, that's what they gotta question. And the final 2 teams here, though, oh, both have key wins against Tampa Bay. Starting off with Oklahoma State, whose best win came in Week 11 against Tampa Bay by a final score of 38-28. All the question, what's with one of these games having like 38, especially 38-28? Because pretty sure, well, no, the Colorado game with Texas finished with a score of 34-24, but still. But their worst loss, I have to say, was Week 7 against A&M, against Johnny Manziel's boys, 24-17. Their greatest strength, I have to say, is their running game, and they need to improve on their passing defense a lot. Like, this is the Big 12. They go sling out the big guns, and the Cowboys need to get the big guns themselves. And also make sure that they can stop the opposition's big guns. My thoughts, though, is Oklahoma State's a good team, but good won't win you championships. The loss to the Aggies caused a 4-game losing streak, which is something they need to fix in the offseason, building a morale for the team. If they can do that, this division's going to get crowded by year's end, because by year's end, you'll probably have Texas, Oklahoma, Tampa Bay, Texas A&M, and all Oklahoma State all vying to represent the Big 12 South in the Big 12 championship game, which this year happened to be Texas. Next year could be Oklahoma, could be Tampa Bay, heck, could be Oklahoma State for all I know. But if not, however, then they might have to settle for another mediocre bowl game against some mediocre team that they could work with their backups in. And I'm not just calling out Ball State on this, although when I get to the MAC, oof, man, I'm gonna probably go off on them, because I'd be going off on them like I did with Boston College throughout the entire year, because of Boston College last season, them being a 4-8 team, making it to a bowl game and losing the bowl game. I mean, like, Texas Tech could have been put in that bowl game, because Big 12, bigger name than the MAC, and they were in as an at-large. So I want to see how they were able to get in there. But speaking of Texas Tech, they finished the year with a 4-8 record. Their best win came in Week 10 against Tampa Bay, like we talked about, 29-17 for Tampa Bay's worst loss. And speaking of worst losses, theirs was also to Texas A&M. Boy, these two teams just seem to have a lot in common. The only thing they don't have in common is their record. Although at regular season's end, they did kind of have the same record, just flipped around. Oklahoma State was 8-4 before their bowl game, and Texas Tech was 4-8. Who did Oklahoma State face in their bowl game in Akron? Okay, yeah. Texas Tech's aerial attack is superb, though, like one of the best, like top 5 in the nation best. They just need to improve on their running game, their defense, and also, to be honest, just their consistency in general. Red Raiders are a team that always has Tampa Bay's number, as discussed earlier, as they have been keeping them from winning the Big 12 championship every single year. If they can take that intensity to every other opponent, then they'll be a threat themselves. I see bright things for this team, as they have a dominant passing system that is tops in the nation every year, like top 5, top 3, only being behind like maybe Hawaii, New Mexico State, and of course yours truly, but that's because I throw for 600 yards a game. I also somehow managed to run for 600 yards a game as well. most times. They just need some holes filled in for the running game and some defensive help, and they could be a contender themselves. I'd say they will definitely be an interesting team to watch in the next coming season, especially since they do have a great passing game. They have a great team that if they could just get things together, they could easily possibly contend in the Big 12. I see them having a better chance of competing in the Big 12 than I do Iowa State and Kansas. Like if we look at this overall, like out of these bottom three teams, I see Texas Tech being the one that can easily do the most with what they have. But that's going to be it for the Big 12. We continue the big theme by going to the Big East, where we get to talk a little bit about the team I knocked off in the national championship game, West Virginia. Another team that I faced in the season in Louisville. And a team that was in the bottom 10 a little bit in Connecticut. I believe they were in the bottom 10 for a bit. Then you see they kind of rose up a bit. And I already know it's going to be Louisville's worst loss of the year. I can already tell you that. It was that loss to San Jose State. But until then, I will see you all next time.